For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Hello, everybody. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks again for giving us a listen today. We're on thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. If you have not subscribed, I highly recommend that you do, because this is a pretty damn good show. And I say that not because I cash the paycheck every week, but it is. It's quite entertaining. And, this isn't one of those political podcasts. I'm not here to tell you about what laws you should and shouldn't agree with. You might recall last week I kind of had a bit of a rant about the Dallas cop shooting and how I was called out as racist, even though I didn't say anything about race, and I was getting death threats. That's the beauty of social media, hey? But definitely we have a good time. We'll love to have some celebrity guest chatter. We talk about current events, stuff that's in the news, have a bit of a laugh. So definitely, if you have not listened to the past, 70-something weeks of this show, if there's a long weekend or a rainy weekend coming up, I suggest that you do it. I really do. All right, so this is now my fourth taping of the day, and we are out of vodka. So I just want to tell you that I'm not drunk, but I might get pissy because it's lemon water that I have in my glass right now. Lemon water. So I'll give you a bit of an inside scoop about broadcasting here. Right now, you're listening to this. It's the middle or close to the end of July, perhaps. It is July 10th for us right now. It is 6:16 in the evening. We're pre-taping this week's show. And earlier in the day, so much of this afternoon, we've been taping our Top 40 music show and our country music show. We've also done another episode of The Scribble, and we're doing one more after this. And so, again, in broadcasting and in entertainment, in TV shows as well, you might you tape, and then you bank a couple so that you can have some time off, and that's just the way it works. And it's not necessarily a Monday to Friday gig. I often don't work Fridays, Saturdays. Sometimes I don't work Mondays. And then there's other weeks where we're kind of off entirely because, like today, we're taping a bunch of shows so that we can bank that. I highly recommend that schedule. If anybody has ever done either like freelance work or contractor work from home and you can set your own hours, it's really quite enjoyable. If you can find that motivation to get working, though, that's always people's concern. When I started my job or my business 10 years ago or so, for me, it was very critical that I didn't just dick around the house and not do anything and go out in the yard and tan, because I had no other source of income. So for me, if I didn't work today, I didn't eat tomorrow, is the way I looked at it. So that's just kind of what I had to do. And as an entrepreneur, you sort of do that. Where am I going? You really can tell that I've had vodka before the show today, can't you? Wow. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really fine. But definitely, again, if you've got a job that you can drink at, absolutely do that. Again, another one of the perks if you work from home, I guess, too. But I would love to hear you chiming in on our thoughts and our discussion topics that we have week after week live at jbonair.com, Live, live at jbonair.com is my email address. And coming up in the show, we're going to talk with a singer. Her name is Rosalie, and she's got a new single, a new album out. She's worked with some great music legends. And again, so here's somebody who's somewhat starting out in the music business. She recorded her album over the course of, I guess it was about 2 years she worked on it. And I like to hear where things are going, because a lot of people are utilizing social media. They're trying to, develop a following on YouTube or whatever it is. And definitely the music industry has changed. So the fact that Rosalie has worked with some legendary music artists, people from decades ago, it's interesting that they would have had a different experience than she's having today. And what is that like? So we're going to talk with Rosalie coming up in just a little bit. And, people are still chiming in about that story I shared with you last week. My comment about the upstanding citizen, the guy walking down the street with the massive gun strapped around his shoulder or his torso. And that was in response to the Dallas police that were shot and killed. It's again, I went on a rant for about 20 minutes last week. If you haven't heard it, look up episode 74 of The Scribble and you can take a listen. But, the point of that, and it's interesting because everybody's entitled to an opinion and you can disagree with them, but I don't understand why people lash out and freak out and just attack somebody for having an opinion. Perhaps if it was an uneducated opinion or if it was, hateful or something to that effect, fine. But just because you disagree with somebody, that's where people just jump on and get so aggressive, and that's shocking. Now, I get that from time to time. I write newspaper columns every week. I'm out there with my video column for the Winnipeg Free Press and for different things that I do. So I also just really don't read the comments. You hear a lot of celebrities say that too, that they don't read the tabloids, they don't read the hate on social media, they don't do any of that. And there's a part of me that kind of wants to, because that's sort of why you do it, right? You write your opinion and you want that discussion because you'd love to hear what people, if they agree with you, disagree with you, if they're reasonable though, right? If they're level-headed and they're responding in a pleasant manner, if they politely disagree, that's one thing, as opposed to ripping off your head because they have a different opinion and think that you're wrong, right? So I think that that's where we're going in today's world, is that we're not all going to agree, but at the same time we should be at least open-minded to hear what somebody else has to say. And what I tend to see happening these days is there's so many discussions about what's right, what's wrong, what laws need to be changed, what's wrong with the country, but the longer that discussion goes on, the more heated people get. And then at that point, once you're already heated, it's not going to get any better. You're not going to lead to any sort of positive outcome of that discussion. It's just going to get worse until finally, as we see, there could be violence between the two people, or, you just keep going back and forth until somebody finally gives in and says, okay, you know what, I'm sick of this already. And that's just the sad state of affairs. That seems to be the phrase that I've been using for all these shows that we're talking about, deaths and shootings and terrorism or whatever. It's a sad state of affairs, but it's absolutely true. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to have Rosalie, singer Rosalie, on the show right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
She's worked with artists like Snoop Dogg, Gladys Knight, Stevie Wonder. That's a really, really incredible feat. She's got a new album out. Rosalie is on the line to talk about her music. Hello there.
Hello.
So the album is called What It Is. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but let's rewind because I love the story. I always love to hear how artists became who they are, how they got discovered, and all the really good people are found by David Foster, right? That seems to be what happens.
Yes, he's incredible.
So what happened?
Well, first of all, let me backtrack a bit further. I come from a very, very small town, and I always had this big dream of, becoming a singer, and I didn't have a lot of support growing up, so I knew that I was on my own to try to accomplish my dreams. And, that's why I refer to my soldiers as, my fans as my soldiers, because I was an army of one. And so, if they're trying to accomplish their dreams, then, they can certainly do it because I have. So, moving forward to the David Foster event, I was working on accomplishing that dream. And, he chose me to sing on stage at his David Foster and Friends event in San Jose, and that was an incredible moment. I mean, I performed in front of 18,000 people, and just to be on stage with some of the greats that have played with Michael Jackson and David Foster himself, of course, was a really, really cool experience.
So I hear what you're getting at is really he's a nobody and he has no major friends in the entertainment industry, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Who is he?
If anybody doesn't know, Google him. Or actually, the thing is, in all seriousness, he's probably had a hand in dozens, if not hundreds, of hit songs and dozens of artists that are out there today. So So if there's a song that somebody likes, there's a good chance that he's touched it in some way, right?
Yeah, he's one of those.
Yeah. So now how does working with somebody like him change, or maybe it doesn't, but how does it change the way you look at music? Because he's got some incredible insight, as we've already said. He's got connections, he knows people, he does it all. What is that like?
You know, just to be around people that of his caliber, you know, even with Snoop Dogg, you know, which is my latest single that I did. I had that feature with Snoop Dogg. You know, just to be around greats like those two, it's, you know, it builds your confidence, you know, because it's like, okay, they're believing in me, and you know, you respect them, and you learn from them, and you know, it's different when you listen to music and then when you dive into it and dissect it, and you know, you get their expertise. It's an interesting process, but I'm definitely fortunate to have worked with legends.
But I also sort of laugh because it's a girl who comes from a small town is then teaming up with Snoop Dogg. Like, that is kind of funny to me. I don't know why, but it is.
Well, you know, you shoot for the stars and you never know what happens, so that's why you don't give up.
Now, so for those who might not be familiar with your music, and I love asking artists to do this, describe your vibe or your sound in one word.
Oh, one word? Oh,
Yeah.
gosh, I have many words, but R&B soul. R&B soul with a little bit of funk.
Okay, I guess if we make that a hashtag, it could be one word. All right, we'll accept that. We'll allow it. Now, before this, you were also performing. You were all over like the Vegas Strip, right? Performing in a bunch of shows there too.
Oh gosh, I've done stuff here in Vegas. I've done stuff nationally. I've done a lot of national anthems. I got to perform in Philly for an Eagles game, and that was in front of 78,000 people. Packed arena, like -4 degrees, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I've accomplished so much, and it's been an amazing journey, and I feel like I have so much more that I need to do. But yeah, it's been great.
Wow, I feel so sorry that you're playing all these small gigs. I really, hope that you catch a break. It's possible, as you were saying, right? You're soldiers. If you believe that you can do it and you have the drive, you can make it happen. That's really the story here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, so again, making your first album, you teamed up with a lot of star power. I said Stevie Wonder, Snoop Dogg, Gladys Knight. Did you ever, let's rewind 15 years ago, did you ever think that would be possible?
Oh God, I dreamt about it a lot. I guess somewhere inside of me, I felt like it was maybe possible. Otherwise, I just would have probably given up.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Jeremy Bradley here, back talking with Rosalie. Now, in the last segment, we've name dropped, right? We've talked about how Rosalie has worked with Snoop Dogg, Gladys Knight, Stevie Wonder. Who do you want to team up? Who would you duet with? If you could team up with anybody to sing with you on the album, who would it be?
Oh gosh, my next plan of attack is to try to get Missy Elliott. She's just, she speaks for women, and she's very empowering, and I've always loved her as well. So that would be a dream of mine.
Okay, now let's go into your shoes there for a second. Would you feel excited, nervous, maybe a little starstruck? Tell me, how do you think you would react when you met her?
I would probably give her the biggest hug in the world, and I might be a little starstruck, but I know that she's really cool, and I'm sure that we probably click. I just love her vibe. So
yeah.
We'll
So
work out.
now this album, again, what it is, you spent about 2 years working on it, recording it, and in today's music world, that's an incredibly long time. So why did it take so long? Did you just want it to be perfect? Did it take a while to kind of get the right vibe for it? Why was the time period the way it was?
That's exactly right, Jeremy. I didn't want to spare any expense. I took my time and handpicked the most amazing musicians. I've got the drummer that performs with Sheila E. My bass player is the one that actually performed with Gladys Knight. My guitar player, he performed with Stevie Wonder, and then my horn player, he's in the jazz band. So, I just really wanted to take my time. I always say you can't rush the creative process because, you run into stuff where you just start settling for what you're trying to accomplish. So definitely didn't want to spare any expense there. It's my baby.
Of course. So what's next? I know your song "Just My Thing" was heard everywhere. It was on the Billboard. It was on the top of the charts. Album is out. So
yeah.
What's next? Are you performing, touring, and working on a new album? What's happening?
Well, I'm actually getting ready to release my next single. It's called "Electrify," and we're going to ride on those coattails for a minute. I've got some shows coming up in the future, and then hopefully we'll be releasing the album before the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year.
I think that leads to an interesting question, because people who aren't familiar with the ins and outs of the music industry might not know. So when do you decide when the next single comes out? A lot of the songs are on an album, right? And then you've got your first. Who decides? Who chooses when? Which song? How does that work?
Well, I'm actually taking the more of the independent route. So, it's I don't know. That's actually a very, very good question. I chose to release this next song, "Electrify," just because it's a feel-good kind of summary track, and it's almost like a party type of song. And I don't know. I thought that maybe it would fit well for our upcoming summer months.
I think we need to ask Mr. Foster that question. Let's get him on the phone right now. No, we don't have time for that.
Next time.
Maybe we'll stump him too. Could you imagine if we stumped him by asking that? Yikes.
We all get stumped from time to time.
But that would have scandal. This is David Foster. That would have scandal written all over it. Come on. You know that. Yeah. There goes his career. We have single-handedly ruined David Foster if he can't answer that question. It's just... but I know you have a huge following on social media. How can people keep in touch and follow your music?
The easiest way is just to go to my website, which is rosaliemusic.com. My name is spelled Rosalee. And I have all of my links to my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I've got my YouTube video up there. So, yeah, you can email me, if you prefer to do that. But, that's probably the easiest way that we can stay connected.
There we go. All right, well, we'll be sure to follow along the album, What It Is. Rosalie, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been great chatting with you.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. And bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Back here on the Scribble, Jeremy Bradley at the controls once again. Not that I'd go anywhere. Could you imagine if all of a sudden I just disappeared on the show and we had like dead air for a good 2-3 minutes. I got stuck in the washroom, ladies and gentlemen, and there was nobody there to cover for me. No, the beauty thing is we would just play you more commercials. That's what we would do. Speaking with Rosalie in the last segment there, and I mentioned some of those music legends that she's worked with, it's interesting, and it's quite refreshing to see the people who have such longevity where they've had a career for decades. Any of the music artists from the 50s and 60s that you've heard on this show, I've often asked them, what's the secret, or, why do you keep doing this after 40, 50 years? And so it's interesting now, with Garth Brooks, who I surprised my dad with tickets to the Garth Brooks concert on Father's Day, and he's had a music career for, 20 years. But then you've also got music legends like Kenny Rogers. Again, we were live from his dressing room on this show last September, and obviously he's been in the music biz for, 50 years or so. Dolly Parton is also touring. But the interesting thing about it is you see on YouTube some of the artists, current artists, like the top 40 artists right now, that might forget lyrics or something will happen to them on stage and all of a sudden it's viral, right? It's social media, it's viral at that point. But then when we were at the Kenny Rogers concert last year, he was sitting on a stool. He had energy. We actually did the interview in his dressing room because he was feeling lightheaded and needed to sit down. Otherwise, we were going to be doing it in just like a common area of the auditorium where we were. And, he forgot some of the lyrics. But the great thing was there's such a fan base for those music legends that you actually didn't care that he screwed up, and you didn't care that he just sort of stopped singing and kind of tapped along to the music. You didn't care that he was kind of looking to the side to have the the cue from his bandmates, and they start singing along to try to get him back on track. He didn't care, or people didn't care that they had to start singing in the audience to sort of jog his memory again. You just had that they just had that love for him that they did it anyway, and so. The fact that they're still touring, and last time when Dolly Parton came through my hometown, I didn't see it, but I remember reading the review that just said, she was kind of shaky, she didn't quite hit all the notes. But it's still Dolly frickin' Parton. I mean, she's been doing it for so long, give her some credit. So, those concert reviewers are often younger people who have, higher expectations about new artists that are out there these days, and you can sort of cut them some slack. Or maybe you don't. You could almost go and say, hey, he or she has been singing these songs for decades. There's no excuse for flubbing or screwing them up. But I kind of go and say, if they're 70, 80 years old, you kind of maybe have to, right? Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Chime in on Twitter at The Scribble Show, or send me an email, live@jbonair.com. Live@jbonair.com. Now, speaking of Twitter...
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
No, I'm not sobering up. Oh boy, the discussions that we have here during the breaks, it's really quite funny. My mom's birthday was the other day. She turned, I can say it, right? It's 61. It's funny how when you're younger, you want to be older. And what is that age, though? Is there a magic number when it comes to, once you hit 70, right? Then it's fine, I'm 70, I'm proud to be 70, I'm rocking it, everything's great. But then it's when a woman hits 40, there's this crisis. And I'm saying that because it's a generalization and a stereotype, and that's just the kind of world we live in that I can say that and be wrong about it. But anyway, so, when I was a teenager, I wanted to look older, I wanted to be taken seriously because I wanted a career early on, and then when I turned 30, everybody was making fun of me and saying, oh, well, you're in your 30s now, and I said, well, shut up, I don't really care. It's not a big, it's an issue for you. Me turning 30 seems to be an issue for you. I have no problem turning 30 because I don't look 30, I don't feel 30. It's once you have those pity parties for yourself. I'm not going to mention my cousin who turned 40 a couple years ago and went through that herself, but she knows who she is. And so my mom turned 61. People were kind of bothered that I had said her age. And I said, but at the same time, she doesn't feel it and she doesn't look it. So what's the issue, right? It's if she had an issue with it, then okay. But she doesn't. So we did a family lunch the other day. And she had said, I just want togetherness. I just want, just do a group lunch, whatever, not a big deal, and no presents. Well, you're telling your cheapest kid no presents. I said, well, sure, that's fine. But yeah, birthdays are interesting as you get older because when you're a kid, you want presents, you want the spotlight, you want everything. When I turned 30, we were taping our radio shows in Nova Scotia, and the radio show, I am the spotlight for the radio shows, so we had a bit of a birthday party for myself with the hosts there at the tourism board had arranged, but then it was still kind of awkward for me. Like, I almost kind of want to then turn the spotlight on other people. So when it was my mom's birthday and we were at lunch at a restaurant, it was kind of, she spun it around as though it was about the grandkids and asking about their soccer and turning things around. So you just sort of, I guess, get more humble with age as you have more and more birthdays. And at the same time, we also kind of don't really know what to get her. There's so many different occasions throughout the year, birthday, Christmas, anniversary, whatever, that for somebody who, you have to buy them something 3 times a year. And I've also got 2 older brothers, and there's other people who buy, her presents, that it's kind of, what else can we get her? Like, she's just got so much stuff, right? So what do you do for your birthday? My birthday, by the way, is actually next week, so we should start to plan there's nothing happening for my birthday, don't worry. But would love to hear about your wildest birthday ever. Send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live, L-I-V-E, @jbonair.com. Or do you just have a low-key kind of birthday where you just hang out at home and you don't really do anything? My birthday typically falls on a long weekend in Canada, so most people are out of town. They're, at the lake or they're somewhere, and I have to work because our radio shows are for American audiences, and there's no holiday at the beginning of August for many people. So I end up having to work on my birthday. Minimal staffing, it's just, or there's times where my birthday will fall on like a Monday of the holiday or a Tuesday, and I just am kind of in the backyard by myself. That's kind of just how it goes. So live@jbonair.com to share your birthday stories. I'm trying to think. I haven't really had any wild birthday. I gotta say, a 30th birthday in Nova Scotia where we were tidal bore rafting, we were clamming, we were hauling lobster traps, we were, what else were we doing? We did a lot of stuff there. I'm drawing. We went kayaking. It was a great time. And hey, if it's a vacation that somebody else is paying for, well, even better, right? But definitely that was a memorable 30th birthday for me. And you always hear people that are wanting to like do it up for their 40th and just go all out. Big European vacation or something somewhere. But I don't know. It's sort of like New Year's. You celebrate the calendar changing into becoming a new year, and I don't really understand the point of it. Some people who say that, it's a birthday, congratulations, you lived another year. Well, you know what? In today's society, that can be a huge feat depending on where you live. I'm not going to get into that whole gun control thing, but we know what I'm talking about. So maybe we should celebrate birthdays because you never know if it is going to be the last one based on the crazy stuff that happens in the world today. Once again, that email address. People are looking at me sometimes when I make these comments and they just shake their heads. Hey, you know what? I'm not being outrageous or some kind of radical whatever. I'm just spewing my opinion because that's the beauty of, the internet as well, is that you can do it. Anybody can say what they want, whether it's educated or backed up by any sort of fact or not. Let me go on one more rant about age, just because, I'm vamping now. We've got about 3 minutes until we're done, but I'm vamping because I am tired today. And like I told you at the top of the show, I've taped, this is like our 5th taping or whatever taping today. And I had 2 late nights in a row last weekend. And as you get older, there's always that joke that you go to bed at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, you have dinner at 4, right? Your lights out by early evening. In the summer, it's still light out at 10 o'clock, so that's always where I feel a little bit weird. I prefer winter because it does get dark at about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, so that I don't feel so bad about it feels later, so I'll just go to bed. In the summer, it's still bright out at 10:30 at night. But I was social, and I'm not usually social on a weekend, but I did. I stayed up until about 3 o'clock in the morning one night, and then the next day, because I was tired, I napped on the Saturday afternoon, and then woke up for a little bit. I let the dogs out to go to the bathroom, and then fell asleep again on the couch for another 2 hours or so. But then at that point, I was so wired because I had overslept, or I guess I was just very well rested, that I was almost kind of going stir crazy because I'm like, okay, well now it's midnight, now it's 1 o'clock in the morning again, and I'm not tired because I've napped and I've been sleeping. So I went to bed at 4 o'clock the next night, so Saturday night going into Sunday, and it's just weird that I felt like I was a teenager again, so there goes that whole if you feel like you're 30 or you're 60. I'm turning 34 next week. but it certainly does make you, you push yourself. When we do our travel shows, like I was mentioning about Nova Scotia, we have a very, very busy schedule. We're up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. We were picking seaweed in rural Nova Scotia at like 6 o'clock in the morning one day. But you do it because it's one night or it's one day. It doesn't really matter. And I used to razz people about that. So if I would want to get together with somebody at midnight and go hang out, and people would say, no, it's so late, and I would mock them, and I would just say, oh, come on, please, geez, you're so old, whatever. Now I'm that guy. I am that guy. But I still did it. I was still out with my accountant until, 3 o'clock in the morning the other day, so I was living it up. Now, she's kind of a night owl anyway. She's a number cruncher, so she's, burning the midnight oil, hunched over a computer all hours of the night. So she's used to that. She's significantly older than me. She's about 10 years older than me. Not significantly, but anyway. So I think it's almost nap time. Feel free to give me a shout. Always awesome hearing from you live at jbonair.com. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real